I put every single monument in the world from EU4 in Africa. Dahomeys, my beloved, will receive all of them and will be seeing some serious power buffs because of it. Generally, we stick to Europe with these experiments, so I'm excited to see how a one province miner in Africa handles it. And speaking of Dahomeys, that's what we call the channel members here. And if you want to become one of Dahomeys, you can click the join button below the video and get early access to all the fun content that comes out on the channel. Question of the day, lads. What is your favorite event to get in EU4? There's some that give you mana, there's some that give you stability, there's some that give you both, and I'm curious what you guys like to see the most. Now, there isn't really much to show you that I haven't already explained in the intro, but yes, this list is extensive, and many of these things come from this province. The most noteworthy, I want to think, is this one here. You can see, because of the fallen copper mine, that, oh gosh, Dahomeys produces 34 out of the 49.5 slaves that are produced total. So take from that what you will. I don't necessarily think it's going to help them because, to be honest with you, they are a terrible trade good in the game, but it will increase the income that they make from trade pretty significantly. Starting off the game, Dahomeys are a total of 3 development, 1 of each type, in a savanna province, which is not very good for developing, but obviously with the development cost modifiers that they have stacked up from their things, I think things are going to go better for them than maybe I'm giving them credit for, but it may be a bit of a slow burn. We'll see how things go. Well, lads, I think you know how we figure this out. Speed 5, unpause. Oh yeah, the lads are making almost 11 ducats per month with a 3 dev province here. So yeah, I think they may be in a good spot when it comes to that stuff. And a few years in, no real major plays yet. They have developed the absolute crap out of their land, up to 36 development in 4 years, which is insane. But it looks like it's actually going to start costing them some money. So who knows what that does? I think that may have actually got them feudalism if they didn't have it already. I feel like a lot of these guys don't. So yeah, I think that gave them feudalism. So maybe that was smart. Maybe they were deving the institution. Could you imagine the AI doing something like that? Regardless, they allied a couple of their neighbors, and they've got a couple of claims on their neighbors, but they have yet to push them. We'll see how things go with that. And there it is. Finally, 5 years in, I heard the da-da sound. Dahomeys has declared war on Dagbon and Ouagadougou, and they are pushing up to the north. Looks like they called in their friend of this Faranguma over here. Where are they at? Right here. No, up here actually, and looks like they're probably going to split some land. I assume they're going to want some of it. They've got claims on all these guys, so it looks like the Dahomeys are finally going to grow. And there you have it. The first war is over, and they have successfully hugboxed themselves in by giving their ally land that will cut them off from moving inland. So turns out Dahomeys are a little bit of dum-dums this time around as well. Though they do have a claim down here on Benin, who has one of the more interesting flags of the game. What do you guys like as far as flags go? Do you have a favorite flag in the game? I do get a lot of questions asking about which mods I use, so I want to let you guys know I'm going to start linking my mod pack in the description of my videos. It's a mod pack that I've maintained for years now, and I haven't actually updated it in a while. So yes, I'm going to update the mod pack. If anybody asks what map mod is he using, what flag mod is he using, go ahead and direct them down to the description box below the video. And it would appear the reason why they're not declaring war on Benin is because they have a truce with them until 51. So next year their truce is up, just in like 6 months. So hopefully we'll see them maybe pushing some claims over here. It'd be nice for them to get some land over here because there's very good trade land down here for the Ivory Coast. And taking a quick look at the tech map, you're going to see Ottomans over here, 444, Ming also 444. If we look down here, you'll see everybody down here is disgustingly behind tech, except for Dahomeys. They have 1 extra mil tech on their allies and their neighbors around them. So they've got that going for them. They're down, but they're not out. They are slowly going to crawl their way up, I think. And it looks like Dahomeys have actually declared war on Benin and their ally of Zazao. Numbers are roughly equal, so I think they've lost a battle, yeah. But maybe we will see them doing something. I think these guys were in the war and then they got annexed. So we'll see how exactly it goes. Yeah, they're just going to steamroll through their armies. They're like stacking, wiping left and right. So I think Dahomeys have this one in the bag solo. And a bit of time has passed. They have recently pieced out Benin, taking the entirety of their coast, pushing them to an OPM here in the jungle. And they also got attacked by Kong. I think Kong attacked their ally, who they came in to defend them, and then they occupied a bunch of their lands, and it looks like they actually separate pieced or something along those lines, because they got these 2 provinces as well. So Dahomeys has gone from 1 province all the way up to like 8. So they're definitely growing. And funnily enough, just a couple of years later, Benin is actually an ally of Dahomeys after losing most of their land to Dahomeys. Okay, man, I don't know why, but I'm not going to ask too many questions, I suppose. They did recently break off their alliance with these guys over here, this Oyo, so looks like they're probably going to eyeball their land up. Maybe they're going to want to take some of it. It's really hard to say. They don't have any claims just yet. They still have a royal marriage. But Dahomeys is definitely being aggressive. And you love to see it. A beautiful pink Kabu has popped out of the very disunified Mali, doing pretty terribly, losing lots of land over here. This is from Origins, I believe. They introduced a ton of disasters that they face, and you have to like basically go through their mission tree to get over them, and the AI is not really good about that. So yeah, Mali is absolutely collapsing, as they do basically every other campaign. Now this is the type of smoke that I'm looking for. Dahomeys attacked Songhai, who's their rival, who is also way bigger than them. At least their alliance network is way bigger than them. You can see here they are at war with quite a few people, basically all of the northern portions of the Sahel. And apparently they're feeling pretty good about it because they declared this war on their own, and they called in their ally, who's probably just going to be like a punching bag. A ballsy play. They took 2 provinces here, gave a couple to their ally, and then released Timbuktu in this Segu, or maybe they didn't release Segu, but Timbuktu was released because they're guaranteed by them right now. So Dahomeys kind of being like the police of sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, man. And lads, it did finally happen. They actually attacked Kong and took a few provinces. Didn't take the gold province here in Lobi, but they ended up attacking these guys in Benin who were guaranteed by Oyo, and they full annexed both of them. So finally, Dahomeys is the preeminent power here in sub-Saharan Africa. Let's see what they can do with that, kind of take this power base that they've established and become the major dominant power, because once the colonizers come, they're going to need to have a decent power base if they want to fight them off. Now, it's safe to say Dahomey is having a very good game and is just after 1500. They have made their way up into the regions, the corridors that will link them to northern Africa, and I suppose we might as well take a look up to the north and see what's going on. Castile is working their way into northern Africa, actually doing incredibly good for as early on as it is, and Portugal is also into the Maghreb as well. The Ottomans have pushed down well into the Mamluks lands and pushed all the way up north into Europe pretty well. Aragon was pushed by Castile over here. At one point, they actually owned all of this land because they had integrated Naples, but it looks like Castile has said dibs and they are taking their land, but their capital is over here in Salerno, right next to a beefy battle pope, so you like to see that as well. Somehow Bologna has actually annexed Florence, so that's a thing. Venice has pushed a bit into northern Italy, and Genoa has been pushed out of Genoa, and it looks like Burgundy is pushing France out of France. We have a very big, beefy Burgundy, and then on the other side here, we have a very big, beefy Teutonic Order. Somehow Poland and Lithuania are just gone. Reduced to atoms, they don't exist anymore. Also, shout out England, uniting the entirety of the British Isles and not even clicking the button because they can't yet, because they don't have Admin Tech 10. Denmark has also pushed into the Baltic all the way over here into Russia, and Muscovy is absolutely dominating in this region, about to take a very large portion of the Great Horde's lands as well. So there's definitely going to be some interesting border changes here. I've got my eyes on this region of the world specifically. Obviously, we want to pay attention to Dahomeys, but this is still really interesting to keep track of. Anytime you play or you're focusing outside of Europe, weird stuff is bound to happen, isn't that right? Over this way, nothing out of the ordinary. We have a massive Bengal and a massive VJ, and aside from that, looks basically business as usual, except for the Ming is taking a bunch of random provinces around Oirat, who I believe is probably their tributary. And as I said, it is 1500, so we have Castile over here in Brazil, and we have the Caribbean being colonized by Portugal, and that is about it. And before I unpause, let's take a look at the great powers. The Ottomans are out in front, but they're actually behind Ming. They just need to embrace the Renaissance, but the Ottomans in the #1 spot for now, with Ming at 1300 development in #2, Castile with a little less than 800 in the 3rd spot, Dahomeys in the 4th spot with 700 development, with Muscovy, Burgundy, France, and England rounding out the top 8. And in 1600, Dahomeys goes all the way from the coast of Africa all the way over into Arabia. They actually have a Dahomeyan Arabia here, a nice little exclave surrounded by a lot of Turkish lads. Spain continues to push over here into northern Africa, and the Pope man continues to push various directions over here in Italy. But if you look up here to the north, you can see France is getting split, but they did get a bunch of their lands back though. And that's because Burgundy decided to form the Netherlands after conquering a large chunk of southern Germany. Don't ask me why, but of course, if you are looking at your screen, you're going to notice we have a beautiful thing over here, and it's even more beautiful than you may think. Because lads, we indeed have a Catholic Prussia formed by the Teutonic Knights. If you do not know, in 1.34 they got a change here where you could see here has unlocked the Prussian monarchy government reform. So they unlocked it via their missions. Catholic Prussia is allowed to be a thing in this timeline, and they have the militarization. Of course they do. Going to be changed in 1.35, but what matters right now is that we have Prussian Scandinavia and Prussian Finland, of all places, and they are going to be a bulwark against the Ottomans, though the Ottomans have almost 300,000 troops and they have a little over 50. So maybe they won't last. We'll see how things go, because this is a very scary Ottomans who is beating up on Russia, like destroying Russia in a war. It's anybody's game. Obviously, in China, we have Korean, Manchuria, and then Shun has pushed Korea out of northern Korea. They migrated. Wu has actually consolidated a bit of the land over here in the southern portions, Canton and this Fuzhou, or whatever that area is called. And then the animists over here in Dali are doing fine. Mewar never changes, and they have actually got most of the land in northern India consolidated, pushing Bengal out of northern India. But Vijayanagar to the south is looking extremely juicy. Meanwhile, Ayutthaya over here in Southeast Asia doing pretty good, pushing Malacca, mostly out of Malacca and Brunei, uniting the island with Sunda here to the south, getting most of the Spice Islands consolidated. The Portuguese are colonizing Australia, and then they're also colonizing a little bit of Australia over here. And South America is extremely Spanish, but we do have some Portuguese Colombians as well as some Frisian Colombians. Truly the best kind of Colombians, if you have to ask me. However, Portugal is the dominant force over here in the Caribbean, as well as Mexico, getting the entirety of Mexico together. But the rest up here, mostly Spanish, all the way over here on the left coast. And then we have some Newfoundland and Danish Côte Nord. So a couple of red tags up here, but then we have Spanish James Bay because, you know, why not? They got colonies everywhere else. Why not go up into Canada? And though Dahomeys is doing super good with a little over 200 years left, they are in the third spot, but they are quickly gaining on Spain despite them having a massive colonial empire. However, the Ottomans are the big guy here with 2,700 development, and Dahomeys just under 2,000. Portugal in the fourth spot with only 1,247, so yeah, there's a bit of a discrepancy going on with the power bases. Fifth spot is Great Britain with a little over 1,000, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th, all with under 1,000 development, the Netherlands, VJ, and Prussia rounding out the number 8, which I think is pretty sweet. And in 1821, not only is Dahomeys the economic hegemon of the world, they are the number 1 great power by almost double the number 2 spot, which was Spain. And you're going to notice some very low development numbers overall because the world is pretty busted up this time around. You will not see an Ottomans because they have been gobbled up mostly by Dahomey, but a few of their provinces have been lost to the most massive Russia I have ever seen. Prussia owns basically everything in the Eastern Europe as well as the Russia area all the way up to the Urals. So the Russia meme is alive and well, and it exists in real life this time around. Well, real life in this game, you know what I mean. Al-Andalus was reclaimed for Dahomeys. The Mamluks are an OPM in Benghazi. Interesting fact about history, Google US Benghazi. Interesting stuff happened there. We have a beautiful one province minor Greece hanging out over here in Moria, and a very beautiful Sicily hanging out over here in Sicily. The Pope Man with his capital in Urbino, as Rome has been conquered by the Spaniards. It's just beautiful because Spain took Rome and then lost Toledo to the Dahomeys. Of course, the Netherlands are a big and a beautiful nation with mines stuck inside of them, as well as a couple of French provinces. They didn't actually exterminate them, which is interesting, but it looks like the British are about to get kicked off the mainland because the British didn't really do much. They did a bit of colonization over here in the New World, but that is about it. Dahomeys didn't really push much past the Horn of Africa. Kitara and this Kasanji, who has a very cool flag. If you guys don't know, Kasanji has a very nice flag, one of my favorites in the game. Regardless, they split the Congo with this Kitara, who also pushed over into Zanzibar and down over into parts of Madagascar, as well as the eastern coasts of Africa. Portugal controls the south, and this Butua has one province down here. And this Butua is a small nation, but they do exist. They also have very good military ideas. If you didn't know, Butua is kind of like the Prussia of this region, though I guess now that Zulu was introduced a couple of patches ago, they probably are the Prussia, but you know, whatever. Bengal is gone, which is good to see. And Mewar actually was pushed back by Dahomeys, but they also took over a lot of the development here in northern India. They have even more than they did before, I believe. But VJ, man, VJ just absolutely popped off, losing a couple of random provinces to random small nations. But they are all the way over into Bengal, though it looks like they lost a couple of provinces to the Dutch over here in Sri Lanka. So that's a thing. Another campaign, another game where Ayutthaya forms Siam, looking very good. We even have Siamese Malaya and Portuguese Indonesia over here in Borneo, all the way up into the Philippines, as well as most of Australia. There's one province here that has also gone to the Dutch, because the Dutch are inevitable. What's the meme that coloniseerd or whatever? I'm sure some Dutch boys in the comments will recognize what I'm trying to say there. We have the British Moluccas as well, as you know. The spice must flow, and the East Indies are obviously a seat of spice. Never seen this tag before, this Akamatsu, so that's pretty cool. They have a nice subtle color, and I appreciate it. The rest is Korea, and honestly, this is all a mess over here. Somehow Timurids were pushed up into the steppes. They are completely out of their homelands, though I think Uzbek is like this region over here. But yeah, aside from that, they are basically just the steppes. But they pushed all the way over into Manchuria, where they are subtly getting dogpiled on. Ardabil still exists, though, so it is safe to say they probably could form Persia, because if you don't know, the nation of Ardabil in EU4 represents the nation that ended up forming Prussia in real life. So kind of some interesting history there. Crimea belongs to Dahomeys, and the rest all belongs to Russia. I mean Prussia. Russia. South America is mostly Spanish with some Frisian, aka Dutch, up here, and a couple of Portuguese provinces. You'll see that the Portuguese lost Mexico, and then the Dutch took over most of it, but the most of North America is all Spanish, though Alaska is British and Newfoundland and the 13 colonies are both British, but aside from that, it's all Spanish. Hence why, despite losing a ton of their dev on the homeland, Spain still comes out in the number 2 spot, followed by the Netherlands, Prussia, Vijayanagara, Great Britain, Woo in the 7th spot, and then Portugal rounding out the 8th spot, despite being one province over here in Lisboa, which is hilarious. Religiously, the Prussians are doing a very good job of stomping out the Protestants, if I can say that with a straight face. Meanwhile, the rest is all Catholic, except for Britain is Anglican. They pushed a little bit of Anglican in the New World, but for the most part, it's all Reformed or Catholic. A couple of Nahuatl provinces here, but Catholic very much so in South America. It looks like real life. And everything that is part of the realm of Dahomeys is a fetishist, though there's a couple of Orthodox provinces here, which is weird. But aside from that, it is all fetishist. And to be honest, Orthodox is like a very much a minority. Though very funnily, this Bashkiria is actually Orthodox, even though they are Sunni in the game, I'm pretty sure. Hindu expanded a bit outside of India, and Buddhism definitely expanded a bit up into China. Austrians definitely pushed south, and the Swiss definitely pushed south as well. Meanwhile, the Lower Saxons pushed upward and pushed into Jutland. So Jutland is actually German. Very interesting. Hate to say it, but all my Breton nationalists, you have been pushed out and replaced by French. Meanwhile, Occitan has also pushed over here into northern/western Italy, so that's a thing. And the Moorish invasion pushing into Iberia, though this time at the hands of Dahomey, so pretty cool to see. And very interestingly, most of the Greek clay has been turned Turkish. Okay, Mashriki also pushed well over into Persia, and there's like hardly any Persian culture anymore in Persia itself. We have some bozos over here in sub-Saharan Africa, and the rest is this Tuareg, Hausa, Senegambian, and a bunch of cultures over here that I don't really feel like reading off because I can't read them. South America is mostly Platinian with a couple of Brazilians over here in Colombia. The rest is Frisian, of course. North America is a bunch of Castilian and Portuguese in Mexico, weirdly enough. And then California and like Baja California / whatever this area is all Mexican, which is pretty similar to real life as well. And then Mexicans in Canada as well. So an interesting culture map mode. Meanwhile, Americans are basically confined to Newfoundland over here, and then New England, and then some, what is this, the Quebec? I think this is Quebec. And then Michigan, and then some land over here in like Ottawa, I think this region is called. I don't know my Canadian geography as well. Though it looks like upstate New York, northern Pennsylvania, and what is this, Massachusetts is Danish. So that's a thing. So it does turn out that home is where the heart is, or wherever all of the great projects in the world are, finishing the #1 great power. You'll love to see it. I love Dahomeys. Shout out Dahomeys if you want to become one of Dahomeys. Click the join button below the video, get early access to these videos, as well as exclusive access to roles and Discord chats in the Discord. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like on it and subscribe, because there's tons of content that is going to be coming out and you're going to miss out if you're not subscribed to the channel. And a huge shout out to the patrons and channel members who keep this channel going. If you want early access to these videos and exclusive Discord benefits, make sure you check out the link in the description or the join button below the video.